And here we are, last week of the 1970 NFL season replay. So we'll see which teams are going to make it into the postseason, which ones are not by the end of this video. Again, we're using Pro Strategy Football 2023, which is available on Steam. And we're also using the historical seasons. They are user-created mods by the fan community that supports Pro Strategy Football, and they are free downloads. So you can grab those seasons on the community sites. So before we get rolling, let's look at the standings as we enter into the last week of the regular season in our 1970 NFL season replay. Looking at the NFC, we have St. Louis at 10-3 in first place in the East. In the Central, Minnesota at 10-3 as well, winners of 6 in a row. In the West, Los Angeles 10-2-1. Looking at the AFC, our Eastern Division leader is going to be Baltimore at 10-3. Our Central Division leader is Pittsburgh with a 7-4-2 record. And then in the West, we have a tie. We have Oakland and Denver tied up at 8-3-2, and Kansas City at 8-4-1. So we have some in the West here, a really tight race to see here. The last week is going to determine who is going to win the AFC West. It looks like in the Central, in the AFC, Pittsburgh has that sewn up. Baltimore looking good, the winners of 3 in a row. Los Angeles, good lead over Atlanta. Minnesota has a nice lead over Detroit. And then same for St. Louis over the New York Giants. So looking at our Week 14 schedule, we got Minnesota at Atlanta. The Jets playing Baltimore in Memorial Stadium. It's another windy day in Memorial Stadium. So like I said in the last video, because Memorial Stadium is used by the Baltimore Orioles during the baseball season, they have the dirt infield in play for football games. And windy days, it would be really dusty. You'd have dust clouds picked up by the swirling winds inside Memorial Stadium, which would make it not only tough on field goal kickers, but also too on the players with those big dust clouds blowing around. Really something you don't see anymore in the game. Boston is going into Riverfront Stadium to wrap up their season with the Cincinnati Bengals. It's been a miserable season for the Boston Patriots. 1-12. Losers of 4 straight. Houston will finish their 1970 season in Dallas, playing the Cowboys. Cowboys with a disappointing 4-8-1 record. They're on a win streak, 2 wins in a row for them, which is really a win streak this in this replay. And of course, it's just too little, too late for them to even climb back in. Cleveland is heading out to Mile High to play the Broncos. Green Bay will finish up in Detroit, playing the Lions in Tiger Stadium. Buffalo ends its season in Miami in a game against the Dolphins, 62 degrees. So Buffalo gets out of the chilly East Coast, and we'll wrap up in sunny Florida. We have Chicago playing New Orleans. New Orleans losers of 10 in a row. Los Angeles will fly into Yankee Stadium to play the New York Giants. San Francisco And another Battle of the Bay will take on Oakland in the Coliseum. Pittsburgh battle against Philly in Franklin Field. Kansas City will play San Diego in San Diego. And St. Louis wraps up the season with Washington. So looking at the weather as well, we have a wet game in Cincinnati. We have a wet game in Atlanta, but we have no snow. So I'm going to sim the games. And again, as usual, look at the highlights, and we will find out the score and the outcome of the game together here. So first game is Minnesota at Atlanta in the rain. Let's go to that game. 11-17 in the first, and the Vikings have the ball. Quazzo back to pass, and he is picked off. Ken Reeves picks off Gary Quazzo at the Minnesota 42. Just under 2 minutes in the first quarter, and in the rain, Fred Cox is going to try a field goal, and that one is going to get in. He splits the uprights. 37-yard field goal is good for the Vikings. That gets them up 3-0. Now we're in the second quarter. Bob Berry, and he is picked up, by Charlie West. Charlie West picks that one off at the Minnesota 49. We're now at the end of the first half, and with 38 seconds left in the first half, Quazzo hits Bob Grimm for a 15-yard touchdown pass. That's going to put Minnesota up 10-0. We now move forward into the fourth quarter. Clint Jones turns the corner, grabs a few yards, and fumbles the ball. Atlanta recovers at the 26. 9:42 left in the game. Ken Vineyard, he will try for a field goal to get Atlanta on the scoreboard, and that is good. 5:36 left in the game. Quazzo for the Vikings back to pass. He's looking. And Ken Reeves picks him off again. Second interception by Ken Reeves today against the Vikings. Score is 10-3 here late in the fourth. And that will be the final score of our game. So Minnesota comes into Atlanta and gets a 7-point victory over the Atlanta Falcons, 10-3. Carl Eller had a big day, 4 tackles, and 3 of those were sacks. Looking at the game stats, Minnesota dominating a lot of the play today. And let's look at the Minnesota numbers. Gary Quazzo, 17-32, 222 and passing yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Dave Osborne, again, leading the way in rushing for the Vikings, 41 yards on the ground. And looking at Minnesota's receiving numbers, Gene Washington, 58 yards. Bob Grimm, 40 yards, and the lone touchdown. Total offense for the Vikings today in their final regular season game victory against the Atlanta Falcons. On defense, Lonnie Warwick and Roy Winston, the linebackers, 2 of the linebackers from Minnesota, led the way with tackles, 8 each. Carl Eller, again, big day for Carl Eller. 4 tackles, 3 for loss, and those were all sacks. We have Charlie West intercepting Bob Berry during the game for your lone Vikings defense interception. Fred Cox made all of his field goals and extra points today, was not called on to do much kicking duty. Tom McNeil, 7 punts. 2 of those were inside the 20 and 4 fair catches for him. Kick return numbers for Jones and West. And punt return numbers for West and Bob Grimm for the Vikings in their victory over the Atlanta Falcons. Looking at Atlanta's numbers, Bob Berry, 16-32. 182 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times by Carl Eller today. Cannonball Butler and Harmon Wages, again, leading the way for Atlanta in rushing in their final game of the season. 30 yards for Cannonball Butler, only 21 for Harmon Wages. Looking at Atlanta receiving numbers, Jim Mitchell, 67 yards. He leads the way for the Falcons in the air. Total offense for Atlanta in their loss today in their final game of the season. Valiant effort by the Atlanta defense, led by Tommy Nobis, 13 tackles. We had 2 interceptions by Ken Reeves, picking off Gary Causo twice. Don Hansen, he recovered a fumble. Ken Vineyard had a field goal. That was all he had today. Billy Lothridge busy with 9 punts. 5 of those inside the 20. Longest was 43 yards for him. Campbell and Butler kick returning today for Atlanta. The Atlanta punt returners, Mallory and McCauley, in the final game of the season for the Falcons. Well, Minnesota gets a win, and they wrap up their regular season on a high note with a 10-3 victory over Atlanta. Now, looking at the schedule, we have the Jets traveling to Memorial Stadium to take on the Colts. Let's get into the action. 9:20 in the first. And Al Woodall, he's got the Jets knocking on the door, and George Knock, he gets right down to the goal line where Charlie Stukes tackles him before he gets in the end zone. Still in the first, Woodall looking. He's got George Sauer in the back in the end zone in the back corner. Touchdown, New York Jets. 7:19 in the first, 7-0. We're now at the end of the first quarter. And Jim O'Brien trying a field goal, and that is good. Our score now is 7-3 Jets over the Colts. Now we're in the second quarter. Unitas hands off to Bulash, and Big Boo goes rolling into the end zone. 5-yard gain, touchdown, Baltimore. That'll make the score 10-7. Still in the second. Bulash, he fumbles the ball. Larry Grantham runs it back to the New York 40. Still in the second, Woodall hands off, and we've got a fumble. Mike Curtis grabs the fumble and returns it back to the 20. Now the final 2 minutes of the first half. Unitas looking. He's got Eddie Hinton, who beats the Jets defense. 13-yard reception. That'll put the Colts up 17-7 here. End of the first half. And we get a Jim Turner field goal that will make it 17-10 going into the second half. Third quarter action. O'Brien, long field goal, and he misses that one wide right. Third quarter action still. Knock turns the corner. He's hit again and fumbles the ball. His second fumble of the day. And Baltimore recovers. They cannot advance it, so we will see a Jim O'Brien field goal. And it is wide right once again. The score remains unchanged, 17-10 Baltimore. We're now in the fourth quarter. Jim O'Brien lining up another field goal attempt. And this one is good. A chip shot field goal by Jim O'Brien increases the Baltimore lead now 20-10. 8:36 left in the fourth. Al Woodall under center for the Jets. He's looking. He finds George Sauer. Sauer makes a move to the end zone, and he is tackled. The ball is stripped. Baltimore recovers on the 3. 5:26 in the fourth. Woodall. And he hits Don Maynard. And the veteran is off and down the sidelines for a touchdown. The Jets, with a quick strike with 5:26 left in the fourth, is going to make this a 20-17 game. And that is how it will end. The Baltimore Colts get a 20-17 victory over the New York Jets. Mike Curtis, big day for the middle linebacker for the Baltimore Colts, a man known to be the meanest man in football. 14 tackles and 2 fumbles recovered. Your game stats today for Baltimore's win in their final game of the regular season over the New York Jets. Looking at New York's numbers, Al Woodall, 13 of 30, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did not turn the ball over. He had a 67-yard touchdown strike to Don Maynard. On the ground, no one got over 34 yards. Al Woodall doing a little bit more running than normal. 34 yards led the way. Boozer and George Knock, 30 and 32 yards respectively. Knock fumbling the ball twice, both recovered by Mike Curtis. Don Maynard, a big day for the veteran, 102 yards and a touchdown. The other veteran receiver for the Jets, George Sauer, 38 yards and a touchdown today for him. And the Jets' total offense numbers in their final game of the 1970 season. Jets defense, Larry Grantham, 9 tackles and a sack. John Elliott, he got a sack, as well as Ralph Baker. Grantham also recovered a Colts fumble, the Bulash fumble. Jim Turner, perfect today in extra points and field goals. Steve O'Neill, his day punting for New York in their loss to the Colts. Battle in McLean, their numbers on kick returns. Battle in Eddie Bell, their totals for punt returns today for the New York Jets in the losing effort. Now let's look at the Baltimore Colts. Johnny Unitas, 19 of 27, 337 yards in the air and a touchdown. A good game for Johnny Unitas. Norm Bulash had a halfback pass that went for 22 yards. Looking at the Baltimore rushing attack, Bulash leading the way with 41 yards. He did have a fumble that was recovered by the Jets. Looking at receiving, and Eddie Hinton and Roy Jefferson both have big days for the Baltimore Colts. 104 yards and a touchdown for Eddie Hinton. 108 yards of receiving for Roy Jefferson. And total offense for the Baltimore Colts in their victory over their their new AFC rivals, the New York Jets. Looking at defense, big day for the middle linebacker, Mike Curtis. 14 tackles, 3 for loss, and he gobbled up 2 fumbles. No sacks or interceptions. Ron Gardine, I've been pronouncing his name wrong, and thank you to the viewer who corrected me on the pronunciation of his name. Ron Gardine, he also collected a fumble. Jim O'Brien, he missed 2 field goals today, but in the end of the day, it didn't matter. Hit all of his extra points. David Lee, only 4 punts. Jim Duncan and Ron Gardine returning kicks. Gardine and Rick Volk, each one got a 6-yard return. So there you have it, the Baltimore Colts with a 3-point victory over the Jets. Let's go to the schedule. Now we're looking at Boston in the rain, playing the Bengals in Riverfront Stadium. 7:50 in the first quarter. Horst Mullman for the Bengals is going to try a long field goal. And he knocks that one through, which will give Cincinnati a 3-0 lead here in the first quarter. Still in the first, we have the kickoff. Actually, the kickoff right after the 3-point field goal by Moment. And Odell Lawson, he has the ball. And Odell Lawson is, he turns corner and he is hit and fumbles. Cincinnati gets the ball back on the 27-yard line. Virgil Carter driving the Bengals down, and Jess Phillips fumbles the ball on the 3 as in an attempt to get into the end zone. Looks like a slippery ball there today. Still in the first, Jess Phillips holds on to the ball with 3:18 left in the first quarter and scores a touchdown for the Bengals. We're now in the second quarter. Joe Kapp under center for the Boston Patriots, and he is hit. Royce Berry with the sack. Another long day for the veteran quarterback of the Patriots. Still in the second quarter, Jess Phillips gets a 2-yard run to keep the drive going, but Horst Mohlman will come in and try a field goal to extend the lead, and he does. We are now 13-0 Cincinnati in the second quarter. Moving on to the third, Mohlman again. Splitting the uprights, 16-0 Cincinnati over Boston. Minute 46 left in the third. Another Mohlman field goal. This one a long field goal, and he misses it. It had enough distance, but was off wide right. We're now in the fourth quarter. Mohlman again. And he will kick that one through. 19-0 is your score. 3:44 left in the game. And Boston will end the season on a losing note. Losing in Cincinnati. 19-0. Horst Mohlman is your MVP. The first time I think we've seen a kicker as an MVP this season. 4 field goals and an extra point. Looking at the game stats, it was all Cincinnati. And looking at Boston's numbers, Joe Kapp finishes his first and only season with the Boston Patriots. 14-42, 166 yards. No TDs, no interceptions, sacked once. Jim Nantz, he ran for only 30 yards today against the Bengals defense. Nantz leading the way with 72 yards receiving out of the backfield. Big Turner, 53 yards. And Boston's total offense for today's game, their final game in the 1970 season, a loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. Looking at Boston's defense, we don't have any sacks or interceptions. We have fumble recovery. John Bramlett, 13 tackles and a fumble recovery. No chance for field goals or extra points today for Boston. Janik in his final game of the 1970 season, 6 punts. Odell Lawson and Carl Garrett returning kicks today for the Boston Patriots in a losing effort. Garrett and Sid Blanks. Punt return numbers. Longest was 13 yards by Carl Garrett. Let's look at the victorious Cincinnati Bengals. Virgil Carter, 16-23. 173 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jess Phillips leading the way with 64 yards. He did fumble away a ball to the Patriots. No damage done there. Virgil Carter, the quarterback, 60 yards rushing today for him. Looking at receiving, Chip Myers, 42 yards. Led the way for Cincinnati in receiving. Looking at total offense for the Bengals and their victory over the hapless Boston Patriots in the final game of the 1970 NFL season in Riverfront Stadium. Cincinnati's defense showed up and clamped down on the Boston offense. Bill Berge led the way with 6 tackles. Royce Berry had that big sack on Joe Cap. Molman, the MVP, his day, missed 1 field goal, hit all of his extra points, responsible for 13 points for the Bengals. David Lewis, not busy at all today, only 2 punts, both inside the 20. Lamar Parrish and Paul Robinson, not anything on the kick returns today. And Essex Johnson had a 36-yard punt return. Well, that will wrap things up for this game. Cincinnati ends the season on a winning note, defeating the Patriots 19-0. Now moving on to the Cotton Bowl, Houston against Dallas. 8:34 in the Cotton Bowl in the first quarter. Charlie Johnson back to pass for the Oilers. He's looking downfield. And the veteran Mel Renfro steps in front of that pass at the Houston 38. 7:08 in the first. Craig Morton under center for the Cowboys. Frustrating season for him, and the frustration continues. Leroy Mitchell picks off Craig Morton. End of the first quarter, and Charlie Johnson is looking downfield, and incomplete. Did not connect with Mac Hayek. Now we're in the second quarter. Johnson has the Oilers inside the 5, and Herb Adderley steps in front of the short pass and is tackled at the Dallas 4. Still in the second quarter, Morton. And he hits Bullet Bob Hayes in the end zone. Touchdown Cowboys with just 2 minutes left in the first half. We're now in the third quarter. And Kenny Houston picks off Craig Morton. And Kenny Houston returns that one back to the Houston 35. Under 4 minutes in the third, Craig Morton looking downfield. He avoids the pressure and hits Bullet Bob Hayes, who is then hit and fumbles the ball. Houston recovers on the 16. A minute left in the third quarter. Morton hits Lance Rensel, and the veteran receiver is down the sideline and off to the races. This will be 7 points, or actually 6 points for the Cowboys. Touchdown, Dallas. 75-yard strike, Morton to Lance Rensel. That makes the score 14-0. Punt here in the fourth. Bob Hayes gets the punt and brings it back to the 41. Late in the fourth quarter, Craig Morton, he hands off to Calvin Hill, and Calvin Hill fumbles the ball on the Houston 25, recovered by the Oilers. And I believe our final score is going to be a shutout by the Cowboys in the Cotton Bowl. Yes, it is. 14-0 Cowboys over the Oilers. So the Cowboys, having a horribly disappointing and frustrating season, ends on a high note of victory over Houston at home. Craig Morton is your MVP. Looking at the game stats, Dallas dominating. Charlie Johnson in a losing effort, 12 of 32, 136 yards, 2 interceptions. A horrible day for the Oiler veteran quarterback. The running game, not much better. Only 36 yards for Mike Richardson. That leads the way for the Houston rushing attack. Alvin Reed, 53 yards of receiving for the Oilers. And total offense, not much, well, really not much there at all, as the Oilers get blanked by the Dallas Cowboys in the final game of the 1970 season for both teams. On defense, George Webster, he stepped up 9 tackles. Garland Boyette, he collected a sack, as did Johnny Peacock. Interceptions by Ken Houston and Leroy Mitchell, and both Mitchell and Houston recovered fumbles. Roy Gerella did not get in the game at all. Spike Jones, busy day punting, 8 punts. On kick returns, Jerry Levias had 1 return for 24 yards. Really not much at all, if anything, for Houston on the punt return front. Let's look at Dallas. Greg Morton, your MVP, 15 and 26, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Dwayne Thomas, good day for him, 71 yards on the ground. Again, fumbles and turnovers have been the bane of the Cowboys' existence this season, and their last game, kind of a microcosm of their season. Turnovers, 2 interceptions, fumbles by Calvin Hill and Dwayne Thomas. Looking at receiving, Bob Hayes, 87 yards and a touchdown. Lance Retzel, 98 yards and a touchdown. Total offense for Dallas in their final game victory of the 1970 season over the Houston Oilers. Doomsday today. Leroy Jordan leading the way with 10 tackles and a sack. Jethro Pugh, sack for him. Larry Cole, a sack. And then Mel Renfro and Herb Adderley, the veteran cornerbacks for the Dallas Cowboys, each intercepted Charlie Johnson. Mike Clark, extra points for him today. Ron Woodby, 5 punts, 3 inside the 20 for him. On kick returns, nothing today for the Cowboys in that category. And not a whole lot for them in the punt return category either. The Cowboys get their... they end on a 3-game win streak, 14-0 over Houston. Now we move on. The Browns heading to Denver to play the Broncos. And 4:18 in the first. And we have a missed chip shot field goal. Don Cockcroft is wide left. What a disappointment after a decent drive. 13:38 in the second now. Liskey. And he connects with Billy Masters. 4-yard touchdown pass by the Denver Broncos. Broncos up 7-0. Bobby Howfield. And he misses the field goal. Score remains 7-0 Broncos. Late in the second quarter, another field goal attempt by the Browns, and that one misses as well. The field goal woes of the Browns this season continue. We're now in the third quarter. Liskey driving the Broncos down the field. He's got Al Denson, and Al Denson puts a move on the Browns defensive back and is into the end zone for a 16-yard touchdown. 14-0 Denver. We're in the fourth quarter. Mike Phipps, the rookie, is looking, and he's got the veteran Gary Collins. Touchdown Cleveland. Phipps to Collins. Scores now 14-7 late in the fourth quarter. Cockcroft is trying again, and this time he hits. That will be a 29-yard field goal attempt that is good. 14-10 is your score. That will be your score to end this game. The Browns come up short against the Broncos in Denver. 14-10 Denver victory over the Browns. Liskey is your MVP. 235 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Looking at the game stats, hard to believe that Cleveland ended up losing this game. Mike Phipps in his start against the Broncos in the final game of the season for the Browns, 20 of 33, 311, a touchdown. Good things ahead for Mike Phipps. Bo Scott and Leroy Kelly, 32 yards for Leroy Kelly, only 24 for Bo Scott on the ground. Through the air, Fair Hooker ends the 1970 season with 116 yards in his last game of the season. Gary Collins, he collected a touchdown pass. Here's your total offense numbers for Cleveland in a otherwise disappointing and rather dismal season for the Browns in the 1970 replay. Cleveland's defense, Jim Houston, 7 tackles for him. Mike Howell, 7 tackles. Gregory and Andrews with sacks. Cockcroft, his kicking numbers today, and of course he also does the punting duties for the Browns. His line today, punting. Reese Morrison and Homer Jones, their kick return numbers in the last game of the season for the Browns. Morrison and Schoen, punt returns for the day. Now let's look at Denver, and they're wrapping up their season win against the Browns. Liskey, 18 of 30, 232 yards and 2 touchdowns. A great day for that Denver quarterback. Good way to end the season on a high note for him. Floyd Little, of course, leading the way in rushing for Denver. He had 62 yards on the day. Looking at the Denver receivers, Al Denson, big day for him, 121 yards and a touchdown. Billy Masters, his only catch of the day, a 4-yard touchdown connection with Liskey. Total offense for the Denver Broncos. Looking at the Denver defense, Paul Martha, 8 tackles for him. Rich Jackson, he collects a sack in the last game of the season for Denver and a home victory. Bobby Halfield, he missed a field goal but hit all of his extra points. Billy Van Heusen, busy day for him, 7 punts. Anderson and Thompson returning kicks. Bobby Anderson had a 32-yarder. And punt returns for Thompson and Floyd Little. Well, this will be interesting to see how the AFC West will shake out with this Broncos victory. And we'll have to see what happens with Kansas City and Oakland. Things might really get juggled in that AFC West battle for first place here, going down to the wire. Now we move on. Green Bay, a disappointing season for Packer fans. They're wrapping up their season in Tiger Stadium against the Lions, who have had a strong season. Both are coming off losses. Let's look at the highlights. Bill Munson is in under quarterback for under center for Detroit, and he hands off to Alty Taylor, 1-yard touchdown run. It's good to see Bill Munson back in the game, because Greg Landry really wasn't doing much. McCulloch, he catches a 19-yard pass to make it looks like 14-0. We're now in the second quarter. Packers trying for a field goal. And that one goes through and is good. That'll get the Packers on the board. It's a 14-3 game here in the second. Detroit is winning. Second quarter, Munson back to pass, and he is picked off. Cleo Walker of the Packers picks off Bill Munson at the Green Bay 40. And let's see here. Oh, Don Horn is under quarterback for the Packers. Doesn't connect up with Carroll Dale on that pass attempt. So Bart Starr is getting a rest in the last game of the season. Munson, he'll hit the great Lions tight end Charlie Sanders for a touchdown strike. That'll make it 21-3, still in the second quarter, but at the end, Don Horn back to pass. He's got 26 seconds left in the first half, and he's going to air that one out. And Clancy runs underneath that rainbow and catches it, a 41-yard touchdown pass, which is going to give the Packers 10 points so far. Oh, Errol Mann, he will shank a third quarter field goal attempt. The score is 21-10 here now in the fourth. Munson again inside the 5. Hands, oh, it's a reverse, and the receiver, Earl McCulloch, he is in on a reverse 3-yard touchdown run. A little razzle-dazzle for the Lions today. And the Lions showing some razzle-dazzle and coming out with a 28-10 home victory over the Green Bay Packers. Alty Taylor is your MVP. He had a big day on the ground. Looking at the stats, yeah, long day for the Packers. Speaking of the Packers, Don Horn getting his first start of the season, 5 of 19, 128 yards, and 1 touchdown. Bart Starr, the veteran, who has struggled and had a very up-and-down season, he will sit on the sidelines and watch the final game of the Packers season. Nothing for him to play for in this one. They're well out of playoff contention. Donnie Anderson, 44 yards on the ground for him, rushing. Jack Clancy, he got 91 yards and a touchdown. He got most of it on that bomb from Don Horn. Total offense for Packers, I guess it just doesn't matter who is under center for the Packers. They have some work to do on that team. On defense, Fred Carr, 11 tackles. Cleo Walker, he picked off Bill Munson, but otherwise the Green Bay defense kind of goes out with a bit of a whimper. No sacks. Didn't, outside of the interception, really generate any turnovers. Dave Livingston wraps up his season perfect on the day. Donnie Anderson, he ends up with a 5-punt day. And I have to say, Donnie Anderson, you are probably the MVP for the Packers this year. You've done it all. You've run for good yardage. You've come out of the backfield on passes and done well. You've covered the punting duties. I think he also does punt return duties as well. Ellis and Krause, their final numbers for the 1970 season and the loss against Detroit. And Willie Wood and Ken Ellis, not much, just 1 fair catch for them. Now let's look at Detroit. Munson comes in and replaces Greg Landry, who really, this almost looks like a Greg Landry game. 7 of 15, only 97 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not much yards in the air. Again, Detroit fairly one-dimensional in their offensive attack. And it shows right here. Taylor and Farr putting up gigantic numbers on the day. 290 yards rushing just between the two of them. Not much on the receiving end side of things for Detroit. 55 yards was the leader today, Earl McCulloch. And everything on the ground for the Detroit Lions in their home victory over the Green Bay Packers in the final game of the regular season for both teams. Detroit defense. Well, Don Horn got sacked twice. Alex Karras got one of the sacks. Joe Robb the other. Errol Mann missed a field goal but hit all of his extra points. Herman Weaver only one punt on the day. Williams and Eddy returning kicks. Lem Barney and Nick Eddy returning punts. And so Detroit wraps up the season on a winning note, 28-10 over the Green Bay Packers. Now we move from chilly Tiger Stadium to balmy 62-degree temperatures down in the Orange Bowl, where Buffalo will finish their season at Miami against the Dolphins. 10:50 in the first quarter. Greasy back to pass for the Dolphins. Oh, and he is picked off. He overthrows Paul Warfield, and John Pitts intercepts him, takes it to the Buffalo 26. First quarter action still. Shaw hands off to Patrick, and Wayne Patrick fumbles the ball. Miami recovers. I think Manny Fernandez again was in on that one. End of the first quarter. Bob Greasy hands off to Larry Zonka, and the Miami fullback rumbles through the defense. Touchdown. 12-yard touchdown run by Larry Zonka. Still in the second quarter, Shaw pitches to Patrick, and Patrick fumbles again. 2 fumbles for Wayne Patrick today. End of the first half, and fake field goal attempt by the Dolphins is no good. Stofa overthrows Marv Fleming in the back of the end zone, and Buffalo dodges a bullet there. We're wrapping up the second quarter, and Garo Yepremian, he gets a field goal. That'll make the score 10-0. We're in the third quarter now. Greasy takes the snap. He's under pressure. He hits Jim Kick, and Jim Kick is off to the races and into the end zone. So the Butch and Sundance running back combo for the Dolphins, they're on a roll. It's 17-0. We're in the fourth quarter now. Guthrie for Buffalo, and he misses it. That'll go wide left, just over the top of the left upright. Score remains 17-0. And that will be your final score. The Dolphins shut out the Buffalo Bills 17-0. Larry Zonka, 104 yards rushing today, is your MVP. And a dominating game by the Miami Dolphins today. Dennis Shaw, he will finish the season 16-22, only 82 yards. Rather dismal day for the young Bills quarterback. Not much going on the ground for the Bills today. O.J. Simpson, 49 yards. The no-name defense put the clamp down on the Buffalo rushing attack and even generated 2 turnovers and fumbles. Not much to look at here in Buffalo receiving when your leading receiver has 27 yards and 27 yards on just 1 catch. And really lousy offensive numbers for the Bills as they wrap up the season with a loss in Miami. Well, at least they get to spend some time in the sun down by the beach. On defense, Edgar Chandler again, 10 tackles, 1 interception, which was the Pitts interception. A Greasy, no sacks. Grant Guthrie, he missed an extra point. That was all the offense they could really generate today was a field goal attempt. Paul McGuire, busy, 9 punts today. Looking at kick returns, nothing there. Ike Hill and Tommy Farr. Not much there either. A couple of fair catches and a very short punt return for Ike Hill. Miami's numbers. Bob Greasy, 11 of 23, 172 yards. A touchdown and an interception. Stofa, he attempted a pass on that fake field goal, which he just narrowly missed Marv Fleming in the back of the end zone. Larry Zonka, big game for him, 104 yards and a touchdown. Looking at Miami receiving for the day, 85 yards for Howard Twilley. Jim Kick had that nice 29-yard catch and run for a touchdown. Total offense numbers for Miami in their victory over the Buffalo Bills. Looking at the Dolphins defense, Nick Bontecani, he leads with 7 tackles. They did not record a sack, but Manny Fernandez, I called that one. Manny Fernandez and John Richardson recovered the fumbles. Garo Yepremian, good line for him at the end of the year. Larry Seipel, 6 punts, 3 of those inside the 20, 2 touchbacks, 2 fair catches. Ginn and Mercury Morris returning kicks, only 1 7-yard return by Hubert Ginn. Jake Scott, he had a 10-yard return. Otherwise, it was fair catches for both Scott and Mercury Morris. And Miami wraps up again on a winning note, 17-0 over the Buffalo Bills. All right, looking at our next game on the schedule, Chicago goes down to New Orleans, to Tulane Stadium, to take on the New Orleans Saints, losers of their last 10 games. Can the Saints manage to get a victory here and end a miserable season on a high note? And we're just at the start of the second quarter. And Jack Concannon, he will run that one in from 2 yards. Touchdown Bears. Bears are up on the board, 7-0. Second quarter action. Tom Dempsey, he's going to try a field goal, and that one goes wide left. Score remains unchanged, 7-0 Chicago. With just a minute left in the first half, another field goal attempt by New Orleans. And they missed that one too. Score 7-0 here in the third. Concannon back to pass for the Bears. He's looking downfield. And New Orleans intercepts and returns it to the 23. Dels Howell, he gets the interception. We are now in the near the end of the game. Billy Kilmer trying to get the Saints down there to get a score, maybe get a tie. Hits Kenny Burrows. Minute 5 left in the game. Kilmer, he hits Al Dodd, and Al Dodd gets through the Chicago defense and ties the game with a minute 5 left. 7-7 is your game. The Saints, they kick it off to the Bears. And we have the Bears return. 1 man left to beat. And this game is going to end on a shocking kickoff return by the Chicago Bears. Ron Smith, 94 yards. Touchdown, Bears. And what a poor decision to kick the ball there. They should have went for the onside kick. 4 seconds left. Billy Kilmer looking, trying desperately to get a score, and nope. Time runs out on that Hail Mary pass, and our game is over. And the Chicago Bears win 14-7 and deny New Orleans a victory in their final game of the season. Willie Holman, he is your MVP. But what a shocking way for that game to end. I was for sure thinking New Orleans was going to onside kick, try to recover the ball, and get down and see if they could score a field goal or even a touchdown in the waning minutes of the fourth quarter, and decided to just boot it as deep as possible. And that backfired. Final game stats. Chicago 14, New Orleans 7 is the score. And Jack Cannon, his day, 11 of 21, 89 yards and an interception. Was sacked 3 times for 21 yards. Ronnie Bull, 70 yards in his final game of the 1970 season. George Farmer, 57 yards receiving. Low numbers when it comes to total offense for the Bears, but the Bears ended up winning the game by just a strategic error by the New Orleans coach. Mac Percival only kicked 2 extra points. Bobby Joe Green, 7 punts today. Smith and Cecil Turner, of course, the Ron Smith kick return for a touchdown in the waning seconds of the game. 94 yards. That is the difference. Lindsey Cole and Ron Smith, their punt return numbers. Billy Kilmer was 18 of 34, 229 yards and a touchdown in a losing effort, in a heartbreaking effort against the Bears. Barrington and Elijah Pitts, not much on the ground. 44 yards for Barrington, 30 for Elijah Pitts. New Orleans receiving Al Dodd, good day for him, 96 yards and a touchdown. Total offense for New Orleans, not bad, but boy, the New Orleans special teams and coaching staff let this team down in the last game of the season. Just a blunder to kick away like that. Looking at New Orleans defense, Absher, 9 tackles. Jackie Burkett, he had 2 sacks on Concanon. Mike Tillman, he had 1. Dels Howell, 1 interception. Dempsey, he missed 2 field goals, which what a difference 6 points would have made. Julian Fagan, 6 punts today, longest is 44. Kenny Burrow and Al Dodd returning kicks. Al Dodd and Dickie Lyons returning punts. Well, that will wrap things up. Oh, actually, excuse me. Oh, we did look at, did we look at Chicago? Yes, we did. My bad. All right, we will move on then. Looking at our next game, Los Angeles flying to New York to take on the Giants. A kind of a marquee old NFL final season game here between the Hollywood Los Angeles Rams against the New York Football Giants. 8:54 in the first, and Roman Gabriel has the Rams inside the 5, and in goes Les Josephson for a 1-yard touchdown run. That is going to put the Rams up 7-0. End of the first quarter, David Ray is trying a field goal for the Rams, and he will miss that. His kicking woes continue. 5-13 in the second, and Pete Gogolak will kick that one through to get New York on the scoreboard. 7-3 Los Angeles. In the third, Gogolak again. He's trying a field goal, and that one is good. Gogolak, 23-yard field goal attempt, makes the score 7-6 LA. Still in the third, and long field goal for Gogolak. And that one is good. New York takes a 2-point lead, 9-7 New York. We're now in the fourth quarter. Fran Tarkington back to pass. Kermit Alexander sees that one coming a mile away and picks off Fran Tarkington. 7:40 in the fourth. Roman Gabriel hands off to Les Josephson, and the Minnesota-born fullback will rumble into the end zone for his second touchdown of the day. Fran Tarkington with 1:11 left. He hits Don Herman, and he is in the end zone. Shocker. A quick strike from Fran Tarkington to Don Herman, and that throws the score 16-14 New York. And with 4 seconds left, David Ray misses a game-winning 21-yard field goal attempt. The Rams lose a close game, 14-16 to the Giants. Oh, that David Ray field goal, that has been probably the weak point of the Rams this season, and it came back and bit them in a big way in their final game in New York. Don Herman is your MVP. He collected the late touchdown pass from Fran Tarkington to seal the victory for the Giants. Looking at the final game stats. Los Angeles in a losing effort. Roman Gabriel, 18-29, 243 yards. No touchdowns or interceptions. Les Josephson, only 14 yards, but 2 touchdowns. And Bob Long, 79 yards receiving today for Bob Long. Used to seeing Jack Snow at the top of this chart, but today in yards it's going to be Bob Long. Total offense for the Rams today in a hard-fought losing effort to the Giants. Myron Patios, 10 tackles for the veteran linebacker today. Merlin Olsen, he ends up with a sack. Kermit Alexander with the lone interception. David Ray missed both field goals, and what a difference again that could have made. He is the Rams' GOAT of the day. No pun intended. Pat Studstill, 5 punts for him. 2 returns each for Alexander and Heyman on kicks. Heyman had a 31-yarder. And only a fair catch for Heyman in the punt returns. Looking at New York, Tarkington, 23-34, 205 yards, a touchdown and interception. Ron Johnson, he completed a halfback pass for 35 yards. Ron Johnson picks up 64 yards against the Fearsome Foursome today. Don Herman, 125 yards, your MVP, in the lone Giants touchdown. Total offense from the New York Giants today in their victory over the Rams. On defense, Ralph Hack, 9 tackles for him today, and Freddie Dreyer wraps up his season with 2 sacks. Big season for the defensive end of the Giants in the sack department. We'll have to look at the final numbers after we wrap up the games. Gogolak, good day for him. Bill Johnson, only 3 punts for him today. Les Shy and Bobby Duhan in kick returns. Duhan and Spider Lockhart punt returns. Well, that will wrap things up in New York. where the Rams, having a chance to win the game with 4 seconds left, missed a rather short field goal attempt by David Ray to give the Giants a victory 16-14 at home. Now we move off to Northern California. 49ers and Raiders in the Coliseum in Oakland. Windy day in the Coliseum. 3:44 in the first, and George Blanda is going to try a long field goal attempt for him. Ball is up. Ooh, well, that one was wide right. I was trying to track that on the hash marks, but wide right. 11:43 now in the second, and Hewart Dixon will run that in for the Raiders to give them the first lead of the game, and that will be a 7-0 lead. Still in the second, Brody has the 49ers down near the end zone, and he connects with Dick Witcher. An 11-yard touchdown reception will tie the game. Still in the second quarter, LaMonica hands off to Dixon. Dixon is hit and fumbles the ball at the 26. That'll set the Niners up for a field goal by Gossett. And he kicks that one through. San Francisco now 10-7 in the second quarter. With 2 minutes left in the first half, Brody, he hits Gene Washington, and Gene Washington is off to the races on that one, and it is a 49er touchdown. 49ers score on a 48-yard touchdown reception. That'll make it 17-7. We're now near the end of the first half. Blanda trying a long field goal, and that one looks good. 50-yarder for George Blanda will tighten the score up. We're 17-10. Blanda again gets an opportunity, this time from 46 yards, and is good. That'll tighten things up even more. Going into the second half, 17-13 San Francisco. Another long Blanda field goal here in the third. Another 50-yarder, and Blanda's booming them today. That makes the score 17-16 San Francisco. Now in the fourth, and Blanda's been hitting them from 40, 50 yards out, but that 18-yard attempt goes awry. Still 17-16 Niners. With a minute 31 in the fourth, LaMonica connects with Sherman, and Sherman on a long catch and run will get the Raiders a touchdown with a minute 31 left in the game. Rod Sherman, 55 yards from Daryl LaMonica. And that will make the score 23-17 Raiders. So San Francisco go into the Coliseum and come out losers. Daryl LaMonica is your MVP in this game. Raiders, they get a win 23-17 over their Cross Bay rivals, the San Francisco 49ers. Here's your final game stats. Looking at San Francisco in their losing effort, John Brody, 24-40, 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. A good game for the 49er veteran quarterback. Ken Willard, only 32 yards on the ground for the 49er fullback. Receiving, Gene Washington, a big day for him, 121 yards and a touchdown. Dick Witcher, 78 yards and a touchdown. Total offense for the 49ers in a losing effort in Oakland. San Francisco defense today. Dave Wilcox comes up with 8 tackles today. Bill Belk, 2 sacks. Tommy Hart, a sack. Gossett ends the season as he has throughout. He's just been steady and reliable. The old ball coach Steve Spurrier, well, 9 punts today for him. Tucker and Taylor in kick returns. Johnny Fuller and Bruce Taylor returning punts today for the 49ers in the losing effort in Oakland. Well, let's look at the Oakland Raiders. Darryl LaMonica, 17-32, 240 yards and a touchdown. 55-yard touchdown strike was his longest. Charlie Smith had a 15-yard halfback pass that he completed. Hewitt Dixon, 94 yards on the ground and a touchdown, but he did fumble the ball away to the Niners. Looking at the receiving numbers, Biletnikoff, 94 yards today for him. Rod Sherman, 70 yards for him, 55 of that in that big, long touchdown catch and run. Total offense for the Raiders in their victory over the Niners. Looking at defense, Dan Connors, 7 tackles for the Oakland middle linebacker. Carlton Notes, Tony Klein, and Ben Davidson had the sacks. George Blanda was hitting from 40, 50 yards out and then missed, an 18, 20-yard field goal. So that was a little perplexing, but hey, a winning effort by Oakland erases those missed field goals. Eischide's punting numbers today, all but one inside the 20, 2 were fair cocks. Looking at the kick return game for Oakland, Wyatt and George Atkinson. And then we have Alvin Wyatt and Rod Sherman returning punts today. And the 1970 NFL season replay in the Bay Area ends with a 23-17 victory by the Oakland Raiders over the 49ers. Well, we're down to our final 3 games on the schedule today, and then we will have wrapped up the regular season. Pittsburgh, the Battle of Pennsylvania again, taking on the Eagles in Franklin Field. 14-34 in the first, and Terry Bradshaw drops back to pass. He's looking, and interception. Well, that's a poor pass by Terry Bradshaw. Now we're 12:58 in the first. Mark Mosley will be trying a field goal here, and that one goes through. That will get the Eagles on the board, and they're ahead 3-0 here in the first quarter. .44 in the first. Norm Snead, the veteran Eagles quarterback, is picked off by Mel Blount. That will set the Steelers up in pretty good field position here. Let's see what they can do with it with plenty of time in the first quarter here. And looks like they're going to end up going with Gene Mingo on a long field goal, and I don't have very much faith in this. That's a no good. Gene Mingo, apologies to you, but in the replay, you've really been extremely inconsistent. Score is still 3-0 at the beginning of the second quarter. And Mark Mosley will try a field goal here, and that one looks like that's going to go awry as well. So the score stays 3-0 at the start of the second quarter. .54 in the second. Terry Bradshaw, the Steelers get the ball, and Preston Pearson turns the corner, and he fumbles. Tim Rosevich picks the ball up, and the linebacker tries to run it back and is tackled by Terry Bradshaw. What can Norm Snead and the Eagles do here? Well, He can hit Ben Hawkins, and he can get in the end zone. And the Eagles strike quickly here in the second and go up 10-0. Still in the second, Gene Mingo misses again. Just the Mingo has cost, I don't know how many victories for Pittsburgh this year, unfortunately. End of the first half, Bradshaw's picked off. So it's not a good day for Terry Bradshaw today. I wonder if Terry Hanratty is going to come in and replace him. See what Chuck Noll does. 42 seconds left in the first half. Snead. He hits Harold Jackson, and Harold Jackson is leveled, and the ball comes out, and it looked, yes, Pittsburgh has the ball. We move on now to the third quarter. Score is still 10-0 until that looks like Terry Bradshaw connecting up with Dennis Hughes for an 11-yard touchdown. Score is now 10-7 in the third. Mingo again attempting a kick. Oh, and he goes the opposite side, wide left. The struggles continue. Late in the third quarter, Snead is back to pass, and he's looking downfield. And Chuck Beatty, playing center field out there, he just grabs that overthrow and runs it back to the Philadelphia 30. Bradshaw avoids the sack, and he's going to go run with it. He gets through, and he gets the first down. Terry Bradshaw gets an 11-yard scramble there to keep the drive alive. 2:32 left in the third. Bradshaw, he's intercepted. Ray Jones steps in front of the Bradshaw pass at the Philadelphia 10. Fourth quarter action now. Bradshaw back. And we have a touchdown, Steeler touchdown. Bradshaw to Dave Smith. And that is going to give Pittsburgh a 14-10 lead in the fourth. Well, that's until Norm Snead does the quarterback sneak up the middle and scores a touchdown for the Eagles. 1:46 left in the game. And Terry Bradshaw says, well, I can do you one better. And he will score a touchdown. 11-yard touchdown scramble by Terry Bradshaw. That puts Pittsburgh up 21-17. And that will be your final score. And Pittsburgh goes into Philadelphia and comes out with a 21-17 victory over the Eagles. Bradshaw is your MVP. 20 of 38, 226, 2 touchdowns, and then he had a touchdown on the ground as well. Did throw 3 interceptions. So Chuck Noll will not be happy about that. Looking at the game stats, pretty much all Pittsburgh for the most part. Speaking of Pittsburgh, Terry Bradshaw's day, 20 of 38, 226, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The rushing attack for Pittsburgh today, Preston Pearson, he fumbled the ball away again, but had 61 yards on the ground. Terry Bradshaw scrambling and running today, 55 yards for him and a touchdown. Receiving, well, it was a lot of action on the ground for Pittsburgh, so the receivers didn't get much attention. Ronnie Shanklin with 59 yards, and then you have the 2 touchdowns, Dave Smith and Dennis Hughes as well, but not a lot of yardage in the air. Total offense for Pittsburgh. Looking at the Pittsburgh defense, the veteran middle linebacker Chuck Allen, 8 tackles for him today. No sacks, but we have interceptions by Chuck Beatty and Mel Blount. And Chuck Hinton, the veteran defensive lineman, he gobbled up a Eagles fumble. Gene Mingo missed every field goal he attempted today. I think this might be the end of the line for the veteran place kicker who had a good career in the AFL. Bobby Walden only punted twice today. Blunt and Staggers. Mel Blunt only one return, but it was a 38-yarder. Bryant and Staggers on punt returns, 38-yarder for him. Let's look at Philly and their losing effort against their interstate rivals, the Steelers. Snead 13-30, 169 yards, a TD, and 2 interceptions. Not a good day for the veteran to finish his 1970 season. Wuchnick, 49 yards on the ground. Snead had the quarterback sneak. Looking at receiving, Hawkins led the way with 48 yards and a touchdown. And the total offense for Philly in a loss at home in their final game of the 1970 season against the Steelers. On defense, Ray Jones, 10 tackles. Tim Rosevich, well, he's usually up around the top of this column. 9 tackles for him. We have interceptions by Jones and Ramsey. A fumble recovery by Rosevich that he ran back for a little bit. No sacks for the Philadelphia defense. Mosley missed a field goal. Bradley, his punting day, 5 punts. Al Nelson and Billy Wallach returning kicks in the losing effort today against the Steelers. And Wallach and Hawkins returning punts. Well, that is going to wrap it up for Pittsburgh and Philadelphia for 1970, with the Steelers going out with a victory in the regular season in their final game, 21-17 over Philadelphia. Now we move out west, and we have Kansas City facing San Diego. .12:48 in the second. Len Dawson's going to scramble in for a 13-yard touchdown. And that will put Kansas City up 7-0. Second quarter action, Len Dawson matriculating the ball down the field, and he matriculates it right to Hill of the San Diego Chargers, and he's going to return that one all the way back for a touchdown and tie this ball game. Jim Hill, the interception for a touchdown, will tie the game at 7. End of the first half. John Hadel. And John Hadel has Lance Allworth. The great Lance Allworth hauls in a 21-yard touchdown pass. And that's going to put San Diego up 14-7. Third quarter action. And we have a Mike Mercer field goal that is good to extend the lead. We're now 17-7. Fourth quarter, Mercer again. Almost blocked, but he gets it through. That'll extend it to 20-7 in the fourth quarter. And San Diego hands off to Jeff Queen. He's hit at the line, and he fumbles the ball, which is recovered by Kansas City. Len Dawson has the Chiefs down there, and he hands off to Wendell Hayes. Inside the 10, touchdown, Kansas City. Scores now 20-14. 2 minutes left. Dawson back to pass, and he finds Ed Podolak in the end zone. Touchdown. Len Dawson to Podolak in the waning minutes of the fourth quarter. It's a 21-20 game. Kansas City on top. And Kansas City gets a 1-point come from behind win over San Diego. San Diego thought they had this game wrapped up, and Len Dawson brought that team back. A 1-point victory in the final season game for these two. Your MVP, Willie Lanier, 17 tackles and a fumble recovery. Here's the final game stats for Kansas City at San Diego. Kansas City's passing line with Len Dawson, 9 of 22, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not pretty, but they won the game, so I guess they can be happy. Another good day by Ed Podolak running the ball, 72 yards. Wendell Hayes and Len Dawson, they ran for touchdowns. Receiving, Morris Stroud, 71 yards for the Chiefs in receiving. Ed Podolak again, he collected a 10-yard touchdown pass. Total offense for Kansas City and their come-behind win against the San Diego Chargers. Looking at the defense, Willie Lanier, 17 tackles, 1 for loss, and he gobbled up a fumble. No sacks or interceptions today for the Kansas City defense. Jan Stenerud, all extra points today for the Kansas City kicker. Gerald Wilson, 9 punts today, and typical Wilson line, good long punts. Inside the 22, 2 touchbacks and a fair catch. Holmes and Podolak returning kicks, and it was all Robert Holmes today. Ed Podolak, he pretty much handled all of the punt return duties as well for the Chiefs in their come from behind win over the San Diego Chargers. John Hadel's numbers in a losing effort, 21 of 44, 185 yards, 1 touchdown. Not much in the San Diego rushing game. Jeff Queen, 36 yards, was your leader there. And he fumbled twice. One of those was collected by Willie Lanier of the Chiefs. Rick Eber, 92 yards receiving today, was your Charger leading receiver. Lance Allworth, he got 53 yards today and a touchdown. And quiet game for Gary the Ghost Garrison, 24 yards for him. Total offense for San Diego in a disappointing loss at home against the Chiefs. San Diego defense, Tolbert with 8 tackles, and you have Steve DeLong, Ron Bingsley with sacks. Jim Hill picked off Lenny Dawson, and he ran that one back for a touchdown. Mike Mercer's day kicking for San Diego. Dennis Partee, the veteran punter, his punting line for today in the loss at home against the rival Kansas City Chiefs. Speedy Duncan and Chris Fletcher. Speedy Duncan had a 24-yard kick return. Chris Fletcher was busy on the punt return front, but his longest return of the day was only 12 yards. Now we go to our final game of the 1970 regular season. St. Louis travels into Washington to take on the Redskins. And 6:29 in the first, Sonny Jurgensen, he is back to pass, and he's got Charlie Taylor, who goes into the end zone. Charlie Taylor, 14-yard touchdown reception, will put Washington up 7-0. Still in the first, Jimmy Hart of the Cardinals, he's looking downfield, and he finds John Gilliam, and Gilliam scampers into the end zone, and that will tie the game if they make the extra point, which they do. Now in the second quarter, Jim Bakken is going to try a field goal to take the lead. That field goal is good. So we have a 10-7 Cardinal lead over Washington. Still in the second quarter, Jurgensen fakes the handoff, and Malachek is in the end zone. Sonny Jurgensen, 25-yard pass. That puts Washington up 14-10. Now we're in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Hart's looking downfield, and he finds MacArthur Lane, and MacArthur Lane is in the end zone. 27-yard touchdown strike from Hart to MacArthur Lane. That will give St. Louis a 17-14 lead. Kurt Knight, with 9:31 in the fourth, will try to tie it with a field goal, and that is no good. Score remains the same. Still in the fourth, Sid Edwards fumbles the ball. Washington recovers on the 20. What can Washington do here with good field position? Well, it ends up with a Kurt Knight field goal, and that's going to tie us up at 17 with 7:19 left in the fourth. Our kickoff after the field goal, that goes to La Tourette, and he fumbles. He's hit and his fumbles at the 22. Washington is going to get the ball back with great field position. Jurgensen looking downfield. Oh, and he finds Henderson. Henderson in. John Henderson, 24-yard strike by Sonny Jurgensen. Touchdown, and that's going to give Washington a 24-17 lead. Kurt Knight trying a field goal here, and he misses that one. So with 2 minutes left in the game, it's 24-17 Redskins. And folks, that is going to be your final score. An upset. The Washington Redskins upset the St. Louis Cardinals 24-7 at home in RFK. Sonny Jurgensen is your MVP with 261 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Boy, the Cardinals end their season on a losing note. Looking at St. Louis, Jim Hart 15-22, 241 yards, 2 TDs, no interceptions. A fantastic game by the Cardinal quarterback. MacArthur Lane, 88 yards on the ground. Sid Edwards, he fumbled 3 times. One of those was recovered by Washington. But that hurt. That hurt the effort. Receiving, MacArthur Lane with 82 yards. John Gilliam with 68. Both Lane and Gilliam with touchdown receptions. Your total offense for St. Louis in a losing effort in RFK against the Redskins. On defense, Jamie Rivers again leading the way with tackles. 7 tackles on the day. Don Parrish, 7 tackles for him as well. Larry Stallings, he got a sack. Jim Bakken ends the season on a good note. Didn't miss a field goal or extra point. Chuck LaTourette is line punting today, and of course he fumbled the ball on that kickoff that gave Washington the opportunity to win the game. LaTourette kick returns today, along with Charlie Pittman. LaTourette and Johnny Rowland on punt returns. And Washington gets the upset victory. Sonny Jurgensen, 19-26, 3 touchdowns. Great day for Sonny Jurgensen. Buy that man a beer. Larry Brown, 64 yards on the ground for Washington. Charlie Taylor, big day for him, 87 yards and a touchdown. Bill Malinchak, he had a touchdown, as did John Henderson. Total offense for Washington and their come from behind victory over the Cardinals. Washington defense, Chris Hamburger, 7 tackles. Bill Brundage, he got a sack. Bruce Anderson, 2 sacks. And Marlon McKeever recovered that Sid Edwards fumble. Kurt Knight's day, he did miss a field goal, but otherwise a good day for him. Mike Bragg, only 4 punts today. Factor and Harris returning kicks. Factor with a 32-yard return as his longest. Harris and Roberts on punt returns. Well, and that is our last game of the regular season. The Redskins get a upset victory over the St. Louis Cardinals, 24-17. So here we are. Week 17 is complete. Our next batch of games will be the divisional playoffs. We're in the postseason, folks. Let's look at the standings. Your final regular season standings for the 1970 NFL season replay. The Cardinals, they end up with a 10-4 record in the to lead the NFC East. Minnesota, they win the Central with an 11-3 record and a 7-game win streak, dominating performance by Minnesota this season. The Los Angeles Rams, they walk away with the Western Division in the NFC with a 10-3-1 record, even though they lost their last game. Baltimore edges out Miami to take the AFC East. And the season of misery is over for Boston and New Orleans. Pittsburgh will win the AFC Central with an 8-4-2 record. And what do you know? Oakland and Denver end up with a tie for first place in that AFC West. Denver winning 5 in a row at the end of the season to climb back in and leapfrog Kansas City to tie up Oakland. Let's look at the league leaders now, and this will be our final regular season stats. Your passing yards leader is going to be Roman Gabriel with 3,404 yards of passing. Your touchdown leader, Jimmy Hart of the Cardinals. And with your quarterback ratings, Johnny Unitas will be your quarterback rating leader with a 96.95 rating. Rushing, Ed Podolak is your rushing leader, 1,371 yards. Ron Johnson of the Giants with 16 rushing touchdowns. Jack Snow will edge out John Gilliam as the leader in receiving yards in the replay. Eddie Hinton, Lance Rensel, MacArthur Lane, they end up with 9 receiving touchdowns to have a 3-way tie in that category. Roy Jefferson ends up with the longest touchdown reception of the year with a 93-yarder. Looking at defense, Tommy Nobis leapfrogs Dick Butkus to lead in tackles with 149 tackles. Willie Holloman ekes by Merlin Olsen for most tackles for loss with 32. We have a bunch of people tied at 1 for safeties. Your sack leader, Freddie Dreyer, 25 sacks on the season. Carl Eller with 15 in second. Clarence Scott, Ken Reeves, and Earlie Thomas, they all had 7 interceptions to lead in that category. And we have a bunch of folks with 1 touchdown on defense. Looking at the schedule, let's look at the division playoffs, and here we go. So when we do our divisional playoffs, we're going to have Denver taking on Baltimore in Memorial Stadium. Detroit will be in LA visiting the Rams. St. Louis will, well, that last game was costly. No home field for them. They will travel to cold Metropolitan Stadium. 19 degrees looks like the weather forecast there, to take on the Vikings. Pittsburgh will then go to the Coliseum to play the Raiders. I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to make my predictions right now. Baltimore will beat Denver. Los Angeles is going to beat Detroit. I'm going to say Minnesota over St. Louis. I'm going to go with Oakland over Pittsburgh. Let's look at the preview on these games. I'm going to analyze the game, and let's see what we come up with. Point spread, Baltimore by 7. The over-under is 29. Los Angeles, 4-point spread there for them. Over-under is 28. Minnesota by 4. Over-under 29. Oakland 4, over-under 30. I think the game with the greatest chance of upset, I'm going to go with St. Louis. I just think the Lions are too one-dimensional on offense to get past the Rams, and the Rams defense is just going to shut down that running game. I just think Baltimore is such a much better team than Denver in all aspects, especially in defense and at quarterback. Minnesota, cold weather, they're at home, great defense. St. Louis scuffled there at the end. I think the momentum is just with Minnesota there. And then Pittsburgh and Oakland. The reason I chose Oakland over Pittsburgh is Blanda can hit field goals, Gene Mingo can't. And I think if it comes down to that, without a doubt, Oakland has the advantage there. And I think that's what makes Pittsburgh vulnerable in this game. Also, too, you know, what are we going to get? Which Terry Bradshaw or which are we going to get Terry Hanratty? I'm pretty sure they're going to go with Bradshaw, but you know, Bradshaw can be very up and down and inconsistent at this point in his career, and you couple that with the really inconsistent kicking game of Pittsburgh, and you just have to give that edge to Oakland. So I'm going to sim the games. But I'm not going to reveal or go through highlights. We're going to have to wait for another video on that one. So, folks, that's going to wrap up the regular season of the 1970 season replay in Pro Strategy Football 2023. Next video, I'll get that up as soon as I can, but the next video is going to be your divisional playoffs. Make your predictions down in the comments. Like and subscribe. And our next stop is the playoffs.